So, I don't know about you, but I know my mother has a real passion for trying to instill good values, work ethics, and habits into my life and the lives of my sisters. She's constantly talking about how what we do today affects what our lives will be like later down the track. She talks about how we need to make good decisions and that we should always strive to grow, to listen and apply what we learn, whether that be in regard to our attitude, our character, our values, or just general things in life. But somewhere along the way, she realized that my sisters and I don't exactly absorb every single thing that she talks about. But my mum likes a good challenge, and she was not ready to accept defeat just yet. So rather than trying to cover every aspect of what we should be doing to help our future, trying to talk to us about every single thing that we can do to help better ourselves, she decided to come up with a few of the most important main ideas and turn them into teachable moments, as she would call them, in the hope that something, anything, would be listened to. One of the first and most well known in her series of talks was about being intentional. Being intentional about our choices and the decisions we make. Being intentional about who we are and where we want to be. Caring about the decisions we make and not letting others make poor choices for us. And remembering that a lack of decision is a decision in itself. Over time, this particular talk about being intentional definitely became a regular and a bit of a family favourite. And there was a level of joking and mocking towards my mum's absolute passion for the subject. This resulted in us deciding to name her series of talks Intentional Talks. Now, intentional talks can be worked into most situations in life. For example, just the other day, Mum gave us a talk on how we need to be intentional about the way we open Tupperware. Another favourite is about building a good reputation. But by far, her favourite talks are when she can intertwine 2 or 3 pre-existing intentional talks and roll them into one. For example, being intentional about developing a good character, which ultimately leads to building a good reputation. So, as you can probably imagine, my mum is a very passionate woman and is very enthusiastic about her talks. While they often end up as the source of many, many jokes, they have also been the source of many good conversations. And I think that some of my mum's passion for these subjects is starting to rub off on me a bit. Not that I am nearly as passionate about these subjects as my mother, but I'm starting to see how a lot of things come back to this concept of how important it is to be intentional. And I'm starting to see applications of this concept in everyday life. For example, I might be thinking about how I'm completely overwhelmed with homework because I've been procrastinating, and it reminds me of an intentional talk that my mum gave about being intentional about not leaving things to the last minute, about being intentional to plan and get things done, not leaving things to the night before they're due, which I have a tendency to do. But being intentional isn't just about outward actions. It's also about developing our inner self, our character and thoughts. Often we find ourselves in situations where it's easy to forget about our core values and just go with the crowd. Often our thoughts can drift and become pessimistic, downcast, judgmental towards ourselves and others, and it can be really easy to fall into the trap of letting our thoughts run rampant and be destructive in our lives. So it is so important that we are intentional about having good, positive, uplifting thoughts, and that we are intentional about keeping firm to our character and good values. Our character is who we are, and therefore it is such an important thing to be intentional about. Being intentional directs the decisions we make so that they will benefit us both in the short and long term. It helps us to better ourselves and to look at our values and decide what we believe in, and to make sure that we are purposeful in maintaining a good state of mind. Ultimately, I think that being intentional is such an important thing, and at the risk of sounding exactly like my mother, I would encourage you to think about whether you are being intentional in your everyday life. Not just in the big things, but the little things too. Thanks.